Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day today. If you're new here, welcome. Today's video we are going to be testing out yet another dupe of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette, this time from Ucanbe. So far I loved everything from Ucanbe, so I have really high hopes about this palette as well. And the palette we're talking about is the Ucanbe Emancipation number 2. Number 1 is a dupe for the Modern Renaissance palette, and a review of that palette is gonna come very soon here on my channel. In today's look, I created one of the eyes using this palette and the other eye using the Subculture palette. The Subculture palette is not available anymore. I bought my one in TJ Maxx last year when I visited New York. At that time I paid $28 for it, which was an amazing price. Normally it would retail for $43 or £43 here in the UK. And generally speaking, we can say that this 14 pence Anastasia Beverly Hills palette are around £43 to £46 here in the UK. I purchased the Emancipation palette for about £7 or £8. Basically all of the Ucanbe palettes are around that price, which means that it is about 8 times cheaper than the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. And honestly, these palettes are bomb. I don't know if you guys can tell which one of my eyes I did using this palette today. I switched up things a little bit and I actually applied the cheaper palette on this side of the face where I would normally apply the more expensive one. And if you look at my eyes, you can see that this one actually has more depth, more color to it, more richness. I absolutely love how this turned out. The Subculture side is a little bit meh. To be honest, the shades are quite dry and quite cool toned. I wouldn't mind them being a little bit better than what they are, honestly, but I am still a fan of the Subculture palette, meaning that the color story of it is so amazing, and I'm one of the people who actually feel like it's possible to make things work, so I'm definitely not one to criticize the Subculture palette at all, but this Ucanbe palette is really something else. Honestly, the Subculture palette was made in the USA. The brush that comes with it was made in the People's Republic of China. Each pen in this palette contains 0.7 grams of product, and the shelf life of it is 6 months, which is shocking. The Emancipation palette was made in the People's Republic of China, and it doesn't actually have the cruelty-free and the vegan sticker on it, so I don't think that is. However, that's the only thing that I can say against it. Other than that, it's amazing. It contains 1.3 grams per pen, which means that it's almost double the size of the original one. And it also has 12 months shelf life, which again makes a huge difference. If I put them next to each other, obviously the original one on the top, the Ucanbe version on the bottom, you can see that the first row of colors is in exactly the same order, and in the second row, basically from this point, these 5 shades, they played with them a little bit. I believe that that's simply because they wanted to avoid a lawsuit. I don't know if this one is enough to avoid one, but nevertheless, these 5 shades are in different order. However, the first 9 shades are in exactly the same order as the original one. Originally, when I purchased this palette, I didn't really feel like this is gonna be a great dupe, simply because the packaging doesn't really feel expensive at all. And this was one of the very first eyeshadow palettes Ucanbe came out with. So I thought, well, you know, the newer palettes are really good, but probably they still had things to work out at the beginning, and I don't think it's gonna be that good. Also, when I was doing the swatches on my arm, they didn't swatch that good. However, the Anastasia Beverly Hills shades are notoriously much better doing arm swatches than they are being applied to the eyes. With that being said, I'm gonna show you quickly how the swatches look like. As you can see, the shimmery shades from the Ucanbe palette don't pop as much as they do from Anastasia, and as you can see, the darker matte shades don't appear to be as dark as they are in the Anastasia palette. But once again, when we start creating this eyeshadow makeup I'm wearing today, you are gonna be very surprised how different things are when you start applying them to the eye. So just for the sake of it, I'm gonna swatch a couple of shades on my arm here for you to show you some live swatches of how each shade look like with just one swipe. I'm gonna start with one of my favorite shades called Electric, which is a duochrome green shade that has pink hue to it. Absolutely beautiful, and I love using this shade. This was honestly one of the reasons I wanted this palette, because this is really something special. Now when you put your finger in the Dupe shade, it honestly feels so much more dry and more pressed that you just feel like this is not going to work. And honestly, when I swatch it on my arm as well, it really feels disappointing. Like that green shade is, I don't know, it just doesn't look good. However, I'm gonna move on to another shade that's quite special to this palette called Cube, and this is a shade that first appears to be white in the pan, but when you actually swatch it and apply it to your arm, the white just disappears and all you left with is a half transparent pink mousse. Honestly, it doesn't even feel like a powder. And I'm just gonna swatch the dupe of that for you. As you can see, it looks very different, and it looks really underwhelming. It looks like, oh, they tried to copy it, but it just did not work out. But when you actually look at my eyes, this shade is that shade. And when you have it on your eyes, it's a completely different story. It works out just as beautiful as the original one. Another shade I wanted to talk about is the shade Rowdy, which is the darkest shade in the palette. It is like a really dark purple color, and that is a horrible swatch, sorry. That's because these shades are so dry, they're falling everywhere. And now I'm gonna show you the shade Rowdy from Ucanbe. As you can see, it definitely looks lighter and it looks like it has more purple to it. However, you will see when I apply it to my eyes, it's so much darker than the Anastasia shade. It's amazing. So without further ado, let's jump right into creating this eye makeup look. I want to show you how I created it, and then I will tell you what I think about these two palettes overall. I think you can already tell that I really love the Ucanbe version. Honestly, if you ever thought of getting the Subculture palette but you missed out on it because they discontinued it before you would be able to go and grab one, I can already tell you that I would highly recommend giving a go to this Emancipation version. But now, without further ado, let's jump right into the comparison. So first I'm gonna take some of the shade Roxy and just apply it to my crease. I already have the MAC Painterly paint pot on, so we are gonna start setting that using this shade. I'm gonna apply it to my crease and with windscreen motion start blending it and try to blend it upwards. And now I'm gonna move on to the Emancipation Palette, which unfortunately doesn't have any name for the shades, but obviously we can tell that it's this shade we're gonna need to use. And I just grabbed a clean brush and start applying it. So far it looks really good. Obviously I only just got started, but it looks really similar and it looks really pigmented. So that's really good. It's almost easier to blend than the Subculture shade. Obviously this Subculture palette is notoriously hard to blend because the shades are mainly pressed pigments instead of your normal eyeshadow shades. But obviously the Ucanbe shades are not pressed pigments, which means that they are easier to blend. And I feel like without putting too much effort into it, I managed to build up that color quite easily. So it is really, really pigmented. That is absolutely amazing. I have only done 3 reviews of Subculture palette dupes so far, and none of them was really good. Probably the best one so far was the W7 dupe, but it was lacking some of the features of the original palette, so I still wouldn't say that it's an amazing dupe. So when I saw that Ucanbe has their own dupe, I was really like, oh my god, fingers crossed, please be good, because I'm still looking for that good dupe. And so far Ucanbe was amazing in delivering the best dupes that are out there, so I'm really hoping that this is gonna be another one of those. So I just took a smaller brush now and I'm gonna dip it into the shade All Star. And then I take the original brush to blend this out a little bit. So that is it with the shade All Star. I think this one is enough to have a little bit of depth to the eye. We're gonna come back with one more shade a bit later and really darken up the outer corner, but as far as the shade All Star goes, this is it. On the Ucanbe side, it's obviously gonna be this color. It is in the same position as it is in the original palette. Okay, so this shade of All Star is definitely less cool toned. The shade from the Subculture palette looks like it's gonna be a Bordeaux color, but once you start applying, a lot of the grayness comes through, especially once you start blending it. And interestingly enough, it looks like the shade from the Ucanbe palette actually stays more true to color, which I do really like, because when you look at the palette, it looks like it's gonna be a Bordeaux shade, and I do want it to be a Bordeaux shade, especially for this look. The Bordeaux is gonna look much better. So this color is different, but in my eyes that is actually an improvement, because this color actually looks much better than this color. I think this is gonna be another amazing eyeshadow palette from Ucanbe. I mean, look at that. It looks better than the original. Actually, this eye looks more high-end than the original. What is that? Like, I don't understand what is Ucanbe doing. How are they selling these eyeshadow palettes so cheap? This is absolutely amazing. Anyhow, we are gonna move on to the next shade now, and the next shade is gonna be the shade Dawn. So I'm gonna just quickly create a little bit of a cut crease to create space for this lighter shade. This cut crease is not gonna be perfect by any means. It's just gonna be a super quick cut crease. Alright, so now I'm gonna take the shade Dawn and set the concealer with it. And now I'm gonna do the same on the Ucanbe side. Again, is the second shade, just like in the Subculture palette. Okay, this starts driving me crazy because everything looks better on the Ucanbe side. I don't understand how is that possible. We are almost done now. I'm gonna apply a little bit of Roxy between Dawn and All Star. Just using my finger, a very small amount. We are gonna go back with All Star on top of this shade. So it's not gonna be this peachy color whatsoever. I'm gonna do the same on the Ucanbe side as well. This is just to help create some sort of a transition, because otherwise Dawn and All Star has too much of a contrast. So now I'm gonna dip my brush into All Star again and basically bring it on top of this Roxy shade. And now do the same on the Ucanbe side. And then I'm gonna take this All Star shade down under my eyes as well. And do the same on the Emancipation side. Okay, now I'm gonna grab that darker shade I was talking about, and that is gonna be the shade Rowdy, which is not completely black. It's almost like a very dark purple color. So I take some on this teeny tiny brush and just really focus it in the corner. That's it. I don't want too much of this color, and I make sure to completely blend it out. We simply use this shade to really darken up that outer corner. Now on the Ucanbe side, I don't know if we need actually any help from this shade because it already looks really nice, but I'm gonna take some of this shade anyways. As you can see, this color is not in the same location as it is in the original palette because they tried to swap around the shades in the second row a little bit, and oh my god, look how pigmented that is. I had more on my brush, but I'm not even gonna finish applying it because this is already really dark. Okay, only one thing left to do, and that is to take some of the shade Cube, which appears to be white in the pan, but don't let it fool you because it is actually a pinky shade and it has a really interesting consistency. It's almost like a mousse kind of consistency. It's not a powder whatsoever. And because this shade is in the first row, it's in exactly the same location as it was in the Subculture palette. So we're gonna take some of this shade and do exactly the same thing, just apply it to the inner corner and see how it goes. The shade looks really similar, but again it looks much more pigmented. Alright guys, I'm gonna go off camera now, finish the makeup, and then I'm gonna be back to tell you what I think about these two palettes. Okay guys, so this is the finished look. I think the Ucanbe one looks just as good. It is so much cheaper and easier to blend. The colors are more true to color. Basically, all of the matte shades are just very dry, which is not the case in the Ucanbe palette, and them not being that dry doesn't mean you're gonna sacrifice any of the pigment because it's actually more pigmented than the original. So honestly, I don't know what else is there to say. At this point, it looks like any eyeshadow palette Ucanbe puts out is gonna be just as good or better for a fraction of the price. I feel like Ucanbe is gonna put a lot of big brands out of business, or at least seriously damage their reputation. I feel like every single time I get my hands on the Ucanbe version, I feel really guilty about ever spending my money on the original one. So for the future, I'm really interested with what else are they gonna come out with. I really hope that they are gonna keep duping all of the expensive eyeshadow palettes. I would love to see some Natasha Denona or Pat McGrath dupes from them, because I love the color story of some of those palettes, but I just honestly cannot afford the price point of those palettes. So yeah, we have another winner, and we have another eyeshadow palette that we are not gonna see here on my channel anymore. As you guys probably know, Anastasia Beverly Hills discontinued the Subculture palette, and I don't actually know about any more brands having a dupe for it, so I have no more videos to make. Obviously, I'm gonna purchase some other eyeshadow palettes and I'm gonna start hunting the dupes of those ones. But yeah, as far as this eyeshadow palette is concerned, this is the end of the road. I have reviewed the Makeup Revolution, the See Louder, and the W7 version here on my channel before, and I think it's not a surprise that the Ucanbe one came out as the best, so we honestly left the best for last. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of the day. I will see you very soon.